Part two. So when I say the way that I was raised, in the sense that we grow and we learn, and that's something against my parents, is I did horrible things as a mom. I did things that are so beyond what my parents did, that are so shameful as a mom. And so no, I am not angry at them for the things that the mistakes that they made or the way they trained me. Like, we do better when we know better, and my parents did a dang good job at a lot of stuff that a lot of other kids don't get. And you know, we all make mistakes as a parent, and that leads me to my George Floyd conversation. Because I was raised in a, white family with Republican ancestors, strong Republican background, married a strong Republican. I've known nothing but the Republican side. I never really looked at the other side. I just knew that the other side wasn't our side, pretty much. And then I just checked out of the news. I never wanted to watch it. I never listened to it, didn't vote. No, really didn't vote. Just kind of like, oh, that's all so heavy and toxic was kind of my thing. And oh, do you have to watch that all the time? And like buried my head in the sand. Like, doesn't impact me. What do I care? Like, I'm out here dancing, and now I look at it, I'm like, is there a balance? Like, is there a balance of the two? Because I think it was kind of apathetic for me to have women that fought for my right to vote, and for people who, really sacrificed so that I would be seen as someone worthy of a vote, for things that impact my life. And apathetic to just be like, oh, it doesn't impact me. I mean, it's only the decisions for our country and our future and our children, but it doesn't impact me. So I really think I was kind of apathetic. So I watched this George Floyd video, and I'm sobbing as I'm watching the newly released cam. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have watched it. And I get done watching the whole thing, and I expect to open up the comments and see, to teach you about expectations. I expect to open up the comments and see people just horrified, like now that this real video is out, just horrified. And I see the complete opposite. And this is somebody who's already been studying communication trends by party line. Because I'm studying bullying, because I'm studying verbal abuse, emotional abuse, moral injury, and words on the brain, I've been tracking. If you go on LinkedIn and you follow who's overtly right, like, where do you see who's overtly left? Where do you see more verbal, emotional abuse? But verbal and communication abuse. Where do you see more online cyber attacks and bullying? Uncomfortable. Yeah, well, I'm just gonna pretend that this is never going out. Like, just say what you would say if you weren't afraid of who's out there, because maybe no one will ever see this. So it's totally, I mean, it's bad. It's the left has it too, but it's overtly on the right, and it's not even debatable. I mean, I am tracking it, and I am screenshotting. This is a person who's saying they are a Trump supporter. This is a person who says, and it's just boom, boom, hammer, 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 name calling. And it's the same people who are posting biblical memes. The year that he got elected, I said, his mouth is going to get the nuke pushed. And then I just kept hearing the power of life and death is in the tongue. Then I began to study years and years later. But I didn't follow. I was just like, whatever, do your thing. Didn't follow it. Didn't keep up on it. Then I start studying bullying. And then I start looking at the communication. But then I also had a very clear vision. When I say vision, it was map pieces that I put together. I wrote 2 people and I said, something's coming from China. I have that conversation. Something's coming from China, and I thought it was a bomb. It's going to crash our markets. And about a year before it happened. Then I said after that a race war was coming. And then still another one. And it was connected to the election. This is when I'm not watching politics, not into politics, not paying attention to any of that other stuff I just said. I'm making these, I guess, what people call predictions. So far, 2 have come true. They're never exactly, so I don't want to say them because I don't know exactly what it is. And that's what the last person said to me was, well, you didn't say that it was going to be. And I was like, I wrote you when I said China and I said crash the markets. Well, how much more exact? And that's why I don't say anything, is because I already know, like, why bother? Because even if it becomes partially true, it's going to be, well, crack pipe. Like, I have no desire to know these things ahead of time. I've done this since I was a child. I've had things, premonitions or strong feelings, just one example, driving down the freeway and saying, something's happening, keep jumping up, something's gonna happen, and then a few miles down the road, I cannot relax. It's 4 o'clock in the morning and I cannot sleep. And miles down the road, the tire flies off the boat and the boat goes down the freeway on its axle. Other things like that, just stuff like that, whatever they call that. I think some people call it predictions, some people call it prophecy. I'm uncomfortable with both. If that's some kind of gift, I didn't want it and I don't want it. And it's a very heavy burden to see these things beforehand or even think or sense that they're coming. The next one is that I believe that this has been a smokescreen. And that the division, divide and conquer, that there are countries sitting around at a table and they know that if they can divide us and get us to miss all of the signs, like if you're heading down the road and you're your bomb disposal, right? You got to pay attention to everything around you or you miss the signs. So if we can all divide as a country, then we're not paying attention to all the little signs. And if we can defund the police, if we can defund the people that pick up on our at-home threat, if we can take money out of Langley, which I seems that Republicans don't realize that happened. Maybe I'm not exactly, but I know back when I had these premonitions, I looked it up and I was like, we just took money from our at-home security? Like, there's the threat from Russia and Syria. So, divide and conquer. Divide them, get them all fighting against each other, and then miss it. And I said at that time, is it going to take 9/11? Is it going to take another 9/11 for us to understand that when those things happen, we loved our policemen, we loved each other, race, color, nothing mattered. We were understand that there are people out there outside of this country that mean to do us harm. They come here to hurt us. And that should be our number one goal right now. To me, if I was in politics, I would be beef that up, because if I'm on the other side, I'm paying attention to the fact. If I'm in any government that doesn't like the United States, and by the way, we are not loved by everybody. We are not the biggest country, and right now we are not looking like the coolest country either. We ethnocentricity, we are kings and queens of thinking that everyone loves America. It's not true. We have a map that's even missized that makes America look like it's the biggest country. We're not. It totally distorts how big we are. So we think we have all of this power and that we're indestructible. And we think that other countries need us, but they don't think like we do. They don't have the same cultures. They don't raise, you can't operate from a perspective of this is what they're going to do because that's what we do. No. China needs us. Well, would China, would they, if we were just gone, what would they do? They'd figure it out, right? Well, first of all, they'd have land, which is something they need. So that drives me crazy. And by the way, this is how I talk. It goes everywhere. So I believe we're putting ourselves at a strong security risk as a nation for other countries to see what's happening here and for us to miss. We're so busy dealing with the virus, and we're so busy dealing with, if you were China, maybe you'd wake up and be like, I'm going to send the virus and I'm going to make sure they all fight against each other and that their hospitals are overloaded. And then I'm going to, I don't know, hit their East Coast or hit their, why would you put this out for them to have an idea? Look, guys, they're smarter than I am. They're smarter than us, than us as a nation. They're advanced in data. But we think we're the smart, and that is such dangerous thinking. And it's not to fear. It's just to say, like, can we stop the fighting against each other? So back to George Floyd. So I watched this video. Of course, I've already said that the energy at the top has vibrated to our streets. And I know that's woo-woo thinking, but it's not. It's science. Energy does vibrate. And it's also business 101. Like, the energy at the top vibrates. So the energy of our administration, I say this as if you don't care who's out there, the energy of our administration has been divisive. It has been bullying in nature. It has been everything that we're seeing on the streets, minus guns and fires, has been happening in our administration. A war. It's a war. It's an angry war against our own people all the time. Like, to me, I'm like, you're talking to another American. How can we say United States of America while I watch you all day long tear down another American? So why are you doing it? No, I'm not. I'm calling out the behavior. I'm not calling a name. I'm not calling someone a stupid idiot. I'm not, although I get why people do. I don't know. That's a hard one for me, because how am I not doing the same thing? I question all of those things. I look at all of those sides. So I watched the George Floyd video. I opened up the comments. It's brutal. It's brutal. It is nothing but hate. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, how can I be seeing this and crying and open it up and read? And here's the part that gets me. It's people saying over and over and over again, calling out left liberals. Anytime anybody says something compassionate, you left liberal, you left liberal, you left liberal. It's like, does compassion equal liberal? And so since I draw maps and basically look for roots, it's like, if X plus X equals X, then why did X equal X? So if the Christian side is usually the right side, and personally I kind of call it the self-righteous side. Woo! This will never go anywhere. Got the right answers, don't indoctrinate my kids, because I gotta indoctrinate your kids. So if the right side is the Christian side that's angry because God is being taken out of our schools, then how come the right side is the one that if you go in there, they sound nothing like Jesus? I'm so confused. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. They will know we are Christians by our love. The power of life and death is in the tongue, above all love. And I go in there and I read it and I'm like, why are you worried about God getting in our schools? I mean, first of all, we're not God. So we aren't. Like, when we read the Bible, I think sometimes we're like looking at what God did and being like, that's what I should do. No. That's why Jesus came, to show us what Jesus did, right? We're not God. So those verses that are about what God does or what God's going to do or how God brought wrath or what God called to do those aren't for us. That's the whole point of Jesus, is to give us a leadership example and a love example so when I look inside the messages, I'm like, if the person took out who they're voting for, I would be sure, based on that alone, that the right are the ones who are angry that God isn't in schools and that we're taking away the moral foundation of our country, and they're for anti abortion laws, and they're for anti-sexual homosexuality. And if I was to read in there's nothing in there that would make me think that the comments from the right would possibly come from people who are trained in the Bible. Not the Bible I read. Or in Jesus, or in any of the fruits of the Spirit. So I'm like, stop judging us. No, I'm not judging. First of all, your Bible says that Christians should judge one another, but I'm not even doing that. I'm simply calling out a communications research project. according to your Bible, like the Bible is a piece of communication, right? According to your Bible, it says do, 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 do. When I look through your comments at the same time that you're saying that you are for the foundation of God being in our schools and not removing those things, and nothing that I see in the communication is anything like what I was trained to believe that we were supposed to do as Christians. So either my training was wrong about that, and those parts of the Bible were wrong, that the power of life and death isn't in the tongue, and that love, joy, peace, patience, and kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control aren't the fruits of the Spirit, and that's not how we're, and knowing another Christian by that isn't, because there's nothing about that I'm seeing in there. And I'm seeing Christians that I know, like, preach that are like loving these comments and these posts. So I go in there and I'm like, here is a man who was begging for his life over and over and over again. First of all, this is a long message because it goes to so many parts of my study. I am for us understanding that police officers have PTSD, and we're not talking about it. We're calling it a veteran thing. Every time they walk out the door, they have it. So they are at a heightened alert. They are going to be more likely to fight, flight, or freeze. Don't expect them to go into a scary situation. George Floyd is standing there. He's, and they're already triggered. They're already on the defense. They're already hyper vigilant. They need a break. They need breaks. They need the healing in their community, and they need breaks. So understand that before I go to all of this, understand that I was already writing policy and platforms for someone to run and trying to send it out to senators and congresspeople saying, we need to recognize this and we need to get them healing before any of this happened. And I still believe that with all my heart. And no, because it's not like some people will say to me like, oh, I believe that might be true. No, it's not debatable. It's brain science. It's neuroscience. It's not debatable. They have stress injuries to their brain, and every time they walk out the door, makes their brain, their actual physiological brain. So because we don't know triggers and we don't know the brain and we don't study this stuff, we think we're just theoretically talking about triggers. No, it's a physiological thing. The more stress you have, the more you're going to trigger. That's why the whole world is triggering right now. So I wrote that a year ago. I started writing about the whole world triggering in a trigger fest that was going to happen. So now it's quadruple that, right? Poverty, loss of job, loss of connection, all those things that heal the brain and keep your brain healthy. We don't have them right now. So the triggers are just on fleek. So that's important to say before I go back to this part. Also understand that trauma passes through the brain and makes you more likely to fight, flight, or freeze, depending on the size of your hippocampus, past trauma. I'm not going to get into deep neuroscience. I'm just going to say, we know now that trauma passes through the brain. So if an entire race was injured and harmed, then trauma brain is already in there. So their reactivity, fight, flight, or freeze, is there. And also there is a predisposition because drugs and drinking and all of those and smoking all calm the nervous system. Anybody who has a history of trauma, you're gonna find a link with those things. And like rewind that a few times because that's all part of the puzzle. So also understand that the black race is also going to be more likely to fight, flight, or freeze, and to substance abuse. And anybody who's watching this that's black, if that offends you, I hope it doesn't, because to me it answers like, get the healing in the prisons, get the healing in our black communities. I believe in the type of reparations I don't believe you take from my daughter who didn't do anything, and but I believe if we find a way to deliver the healing to people who need healing. And all of our communities need it right now. So if we could all just come together and build places of healing, that would be awesome. Instead of just being like this for this race or this race. Like money, I mean, what? My family is supposed to, my broke self is supposed to give money to your family because my ancestors had slaves? No, that's just silly. Honestly, that's just silly. We have people who have fought and died for this country and their brains have been bloated, don't get money, like, that are still doing it. So to me, this idea that someone should be handed a check for things, no, I'm not for that, but I am for getting the healing. I am for more grants being given to black, but not just blacks. I think that Hispanic Americans and Native Americans is a big thing for me. So, and that's what I don't like about the whole BLM movement is it's like there's kids in sex slavery right now. Like I am so angry about George Floyd. I want to march tonight. I literally want to march tonight. I'm so ticked off. But I also want to march for kids in sex slavery. And I also want to march for, like, if we're going to march for that, for what was done back then why aren't you marching for Native Americans? And so when you don't march for other people, people start to be like, oh, it's only for you. So that's my discussion that I would have with people who are for just marching for Black Lives Matter. I want to march for everybody, including, people that were white, quote unquote, wherever that land is, white land, that were raised with, oh, God, if you knew the stories I know, you would just not make it about race. But I believe that this George Floyd video proves what blacks are trying to say about systematic racism. And here's why. And I was already writing about this beforehand, but I don't think it's so much systematic. It's so bad that it's not just what happened in that moment, because I can't prove that was that moment. It's what we do afterwards that's so ratchet. I can't think of any other word. One too many silly TikTok videos. Yeah, that was a new thing. I had to see what was trying to be banned. So, oh God, I can't get back to thinking that I'm going to go back to this one point. Compassion. Jesus's life was compassion. That was his existence. So if the right is not showing compassion, then I don't know how, therefore, like, I don't know who their God is. Like, I'm confused. It's just like, is that just something you pull out because it sounds cool? Or is that the God that sent the Jesus that I've read about? I mean, it's not a judgment thing. I'm actually not religious. I don't like religion or organized religion, but I happen to have been raised in it, and I do know the Bible, and I know what it says. So it just makes me start to wonder, is any of my faith or what I was raised to believe even true? Because I was bullied by Christians online, and then I see this and I'm like, why is it always the Christians? Well, I also know why they're triggered and they don't know the brain. So, but that's a direct conflict right there. Like, compassion, Jesus, go in, and Christians are all hammering, like, no compassion. So, like, really, boom, 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 boom. Like, I got through maybe 100, and I was like, here we go again. Like, why is it, am I supposed to be seeing this so I can call it out? No, because I'll get hammered. Holy mackerel, would I get hammered. So I went back to that one. Now it was the one I was trying to get to. I wanted to talk about, so he gets to the moment when, first of all, it's a $20 bill, which I have a thing about a $20 bill in perspective for someone that donated from another country to the organization that I led, when people that were here in America that had been getting the services for years. And I love you if you're out there and this happens to get back to you, but it's just, truth is truth. And had been taking, getting, and it's not their fault. We didn't ask them, but when we did, it didn't come in, and they were getting hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of free services. And, somebody from another country that was supporting her entire family gave a $20 bill for a fundraiser I did. And I'll never forget that $20 bill. And just perspective is powerful. This woman was working a full-time job in another country away from her child and sending her whole family back home money. That's why I think Americans have no clue how privileged we all are. And sending money back home to her family, and still gave $20 to her husband's ex-wife's fundraiser. Yeah, perspective is powerful. And it was a $20 bill. So every time I see 20, I'm just like, so this is over a $20 bill. And so one of the first comments I saw from somebody was, way to go, George Floyd, over a $20 bill. Okay, reverse the thought process. Way to go, police officers, over a $20 bill. So a lot of people would say, well, if he hadn't been there, I know the arguments because I've seen them all. So here's what I'm gonna say. The second that man said, I cannot breathe. One thing that I proved during my studies when I was studying PTSD, trauma, and suicide and race was that trust is the thing that's missing. Like, that is an area where we are very privileged. People trust us as whites more than they trust. A white man comes up and tells you he's got a nonprofit, and a black man comes up and does the same thing. Do you trust the same? So I can call out all those little thoughts because we've all had them. And until we recognize that and start to change that narrative in our heads, we're not being honest. Because it's the thoughts in our heads that really we wouldn't be so holier than thou about if everyone could see them. So I was like, so the $20 thing came up, and I was like, well, hold on. Over a $20 bill, a man died. Like, there's people in sex slavery. There are people that are abusing people in homes. There are people who, there's so many things right now that, like, that $20 bill and all of that. But let's say most people would say, well, that's what happens when you do a counterfeit. Okay. So here's what I would say to that. If you have ever, first of all, I look at theft in a different way than other people do. I think you can steal hope. I think you can steal intellectual property. I think you can cheat on your taxes. I think you can cheat on all kinds of things, and that is theft. The root is theft. So when you sit there and say, I really hope that you're coming from a place where you've never cheated on your taxes, you've never picked up something, even back to your childhood, because it doesn't matter when you did it. If you ever did it, if you ever stole from somebody, then we have no business saying, well, if you would never, you shouldn't have passed off a $20 counterfeit. And that's where I think we really get in trouble in the Christian religion and in this world, where we sit there and we go, well, if he hadn't been there and and it's like, hold on. If you never, ever in your life done anything that could qualify as theft, as far as money or goods, I stole an umbrella when I was a kid. I stole makeup from Long's. I'm just going to put that out there. My mom probably already knew because I needed makeup, and when you don't have things that you really feel you need to fit in. So yeah, like, if you've ever cheated on your taxes, if you've ever even finagled your taxes, if you've ever done a form where you filled out and you've kind of lied a little bit so your money would change on that form that you're filing for something, any of those, you have no business talking about his $20 because that was counterfeit. That was a lie. So if you've ever worked the system to your favor financially, there's no difference between you and George Floyd. None. The second part of that is that people will say is, so that's one of my things. And oh, by the way, theft, you can also steal hope. You can also steal $20 worth of someone's hopes and dreams. Most people call that crazy talk, but I'll tell you, steal someone's reputation, steal someone's art, steal someone's work, copy and paste something without somebody's permission. It's all theft. So if you've never done $20 worth in your entire life, then me and you on a conversation. You're about the only one I want to talk to you about that argument. So let's say that argument posed, that's what I would say. If you never, okay, so that argument's to me off the table, that it was a $20 bill, because that means all of us have tried to counterfeit $20 in our life. And that's dang sure. And I think we forget a lot of times white crime. So the next comment was something about getting the next thug off the street. Yes. People who are posing as Trump supporters, almost every one of them had something to say about Trump too, and the left, so they're on the right? So the side of Christianity, or we want God back in schools, or our foundation is the morality of this country, or I don't know, what is the foundation of our country? But that's how I always saw the right side, was like, oh, they want God in schools, they don't want abortion, they hate, gay people, or they really don't like their lifestyle, or they don't want them to be able to get married. So then you also are for what? Compassion. Oh, no? Let's don't go together. Okay. Oh, God, I try so hard not to be condescending. It's really hard. How do I do this? How do I communicate this without condescension? I need to work on that. That's a hard one. Because it's arrogance and it's pride to sound that way. But it's just, I'm just trying to go, this is not logic. How can I say it in a way that's, because I know that's how I come across. Been told enough times. It always seems to be by people who are really condescending and that tell me that too, though. So I'm not sure I need to worry about that so much. Like, they're quick to point out the thing I'm messing up. So the next comment was that I wanted to pull apart because I look for roots, like roots of logic. That's why I just wrote 20,000 pages on roots of logic. So, and it's John Green, Tool, blow it up, shrink it down to see if it's truth. He's probably like, please don't put my name on this video if you ever put it out. Sorry. Wouldn't be hard to figure that one out. So the next one was, this is what we were trained to do. And they went to the initial action of putting someone out unconscious, something. And I'm like, it's funny how you can change the whole conversation by getting everyone's focus to focus on that one little part. And then everyone's like, yeah, that's right. It's our training. I mean, it's like 100 comments. Yep, that was our training. It's, something dash so-and-so, and that's what we're trained to do. And it's like, were you trained when somebody starts saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Mama, I can't even talk about it. I'll just lose it. Mama, because my daughter calls me mama. So, and I have also been in situations with police officers. I have had to defend, my stepdaughter can tell you a story about me losing it on police officers, seeing them, what they were doing to a black group of people, and what multiple incidences where I have seen a police abuse of power. Now, mind you, I love what I think we're not recognizing is they're under a lot of stress, but I also think we're not recognizing that people who like power and that go into jobs that have power, you're probably gonna have more issues with abuse of power. And so you're going to have to work on that. It doesn't mean you defund them. It just means you root that out. I don't know, get a new HR process. I have one for that. Back rowers. They're in the back row. They're probably not after the power. True story. So yeah, if they're not seeking out power, probably not going to be an abuse of power. Or if they just, since they were a kid, they always wanted to, help rescue people and save people, it's probably gonna be different than, you might want to figure that part in your HR process, because there is abuse of power, but there's abuse of power in every job. There just is. That's part of human nature. People want power. They want to be stars. That's power. Or they want to be this because that's power. People want power. Personal power is powerful. It's not a bad thing. It's just when you get to the abuse. And I've had moments where I've certainly been accused of abusive power. So it's something we can all fall into if we've ever had power in our lives. So then I look at that moment and I say, at that moment when this man is begging for his life, is that what you were trained? Were you trained to see somebody? Were you trained to not believe somebody when they give you symptoms? Because I've been at the VA doctors and been not believed when I gave my symptoms. And it's abusive. Trust trauma is real. It is one of the biggest parts of my training. If you've been married and someone cheats on you, that's trust trauma. It will physiologically change your brain. If you go in, when you look at medical cases that are missed, most of them are missed because they didn't believe their symptoms and they thought they were making them up. So trust trauma is real. One thing that I found in my studies was that we tend to believe white people. And so the trust, when this man started saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, it was like, we don't trust him, we don't believe him because he passed off a $20 bill. But were you trained that once somebody passes off a $20 bill that you don't have to call the police? Or you don't have to call the 911 to get medical help, or you don't have to assist this man, or you don't have to, is that part of the training? Because if so, then yeah, I already think we need some retraining, but let's add that one. The second someone says, I can't breathe, as many times as this man was crying out, I can't breathe, what gave them the legal right to ignore that plea for help? So people are still arguing. I can hear it in their head. He was talking because, oh no, I don't have to hear it in their head. They were saying it in the comments. The police officers saying it. He's talking just fine. Okay, so he can breathe, right? Then he got to a point where he got real still. And up to that point, I was like, first of all, my first issue was when I saw his hands behind his back, and I felt like this is a big man, and if he is on drugs, then they're very hard to control. But I also thought, what threat is he to you? His hands are behind his back. Like, well, I'm afraid of you, I'm afraid of what you're gonna do. His hands are handcuffed behind his stinking back. Is he gonna, even if he headbutted you, you have anything sharp? Even if he did, what in the heck is he gonna do with it? He's handcuffed. So please, somebody, I wish I could be doing this a double live with somebody who totally disagrees with me. Maybe I'll ask for somebody who totally did. Maybe I'll ask one of the people in that group to go do a double live with me. Once his hands are handcuffed behind his back, I mean, don't we make jokes about like, I could kick your, with the two, like behind my back? Is that the real concern, that you think that this person can kick your butt with two hands tied behind his back and you have a pistol on you? So first of all, that would be my retraining for the police officers, is I would be like, hey guys, once we have his hands tied behind his back, maybe take a step back, calm your nervous system. Let's teach you all how to calm your nervous system and calm your triggers, right? This is a heavy guy. Let's just take a breather. Because at that point, he is no longer a threat. So they're trying to get him in the cop car. He won't obey. I understood that whole part. They're pushing him in. It was painful to hear, because here's what my brain said. This guy has a story. Something happened to him. So everyone else is watching it probably, and I'm guessing most people are looking at it and thinking, but because I've studied stories of thousands and thousands and thousands of people for 20 years, and I know that everyone has a story. I'm watching him and I'm hearing the words that he's saying very closely, and he keeps saying, I'm not that kind of guy. And he has little words that you're saying that I'm saying, there's a story. He said something about claustrophobia. I don't know if he's been in jail before. I don't, but when I saw it, I would have theorized that something happened to him. He has been in a situation where he was talking about having anxiety. If you've ever had an anxiety attack, and yes, I get it. Like, he was on drugs and his heart was, okay, so if they suspected that, then they need to be trained that could cause a heart attack. Oh, no, he's on drugs, so whatever. Like the one guy said, get another thug off the street. I gotta get back to that one because that's an important one. But at the point when he was on the ground, so let's say, forget all that. Let's say I just said, okay, fine, that's all cool. It's all cool that you guys continue to aggress instead of just diffusing the bomb, diffusing the system, like everyone who's dealing with somebody who's on drugs or PTSD needs to do. They need to treat it as a bomb in the head, because it is. It's the amygdala and it's the brain, and it's sending adrenaline through the body, and everyone's popped up on adrenaline, and we all need to calm that down. And then, okay, now, sir, are you breathing? We're going to need to put you, let's talk to the man, hear him. You obviously weren't in a rush. You had 8 minutes to stick your freaking knee in his neck. So you could have taken 8 minutes to have a conversation with him. You calm down your nervous system. He calms down his nervous system, right? Have a conversation, let him be heard, hear his fears, calm his nervous system, right? And then he sat there, and you could hear he was begging. He said, listen to me, or something like that. He was asking to please be listened to. If you don't know trauma of not being heard, it's a real trauma. And someone being heard can calm their nervous system. Oh, I can't visualize what happened in my head. Like, I will literally bawl. So get him out there, and he's begging for help. He's crying for help. And then at the one point, you hear the two people behind him saying, check his pulse, check his pulse, check his pulse. He's not breathing. First of all, they now have PTSD because they were powerless, because the cops have guns and they don't. So they were powerless to help their friend or even a stranger. So first of all, kudos to those brave souls who stood back there and said anything. And I bet now they're going to have guilt. So you know how people go into combat and they can't save their buddy, and it causes them severe PTSD for the rest of their life? Well, those people, they've got it now. I promise you, that's not theoretical. They have it. They're going to have guilt. They're going to have nightmares. They just watched, and they could do nothing. They were powerless to help him. And the girl is, giving me goosebumps all over my whole body. The girl is yelling out and saying, check his pulse, check his pulse. It's like nobody that watched that video and those thousands and thousands of nasty comments even heard that. And the guy is not even moving anymore. So at what point did he need to keep his knee on there when the guy isn't moving anymore? How can you argue that logically? What part of that is a police officer's job? I don't care if he was on drugs. So then I want to get to that point. So then I started seeing all these comments, and oh my gosh, those people who had to watch that and not be able to help, I would love to talk to them personally. I can only imagine what absolutely powerless. So here's what I'm going to tell you about the drugs part of it. Alcohol is a drug. Anything that impairs your brain is a brain-altering substance and is a drug. That stuff you get over the counter that you take for your pain, that's a narcotic, it's a drug. That all of that stuff that you take that didn't come from the earth and some from the earth, it's a drug. So this thing that I patterned during my studies was how we elevate different things. Well, it's not this one. Well, it's not this one. Well, he was on this one. Okay. If you have ever touched a drug being a brain-altering substance, which is why we need to start talking about the brain, a brain-altering substance, alcohol, and by the way, pride is a brain-altering substance. True story. Google it. Yeah, elevation. I call it the high of the pride high. So you can get certain chemicals from feeling good about elevating yourself. So it's like, so I keep asking myself, like, how do you do these things without saying, I'm not above you? I am with, first of all, I want to be with everybody. If we're all together for kindness and for saying, I just think about those, I'm going to go back to that thing. For those police officers, I bet they're going to have regret. Or maybe they won't, because maybe everyone will tell them don't feel bad about it. But when they go to bed at night, when they watch the video one day and they see his body lie limp and see him begging for his mom, like it, see, the thing about not training people in the brain is that we don't understand that when the adrenaline and all those chemicals start going in the body, it also shuts off our processing lobe. And when we already have previous PTSD, we could already have injuries with the frontal processing, decision-making, rational decision-making lobe of our brain. When all of those chemicals are stirred, when you are triggered, the processing part of your brain is inhibited. It is disabled. I'm not saying it's turned off, and I don't know perfect neuroscience. I just tried to get the general gist of it, like second grade level. Boom, not working. Stress, boom, not working as well, right? Kai, what's a stressful moment when you feel disoriented, when you're like, I can't think. Just picture that in that moment. So everyone's really actually not in their full decision. So in that moment, nor do I blame, nor do I have any anger. I don't have any hatred or anger towards the police officers. They're going to have to live with what happened. This has ruined their life too. It's like, and some people, on one side would probably say, well, their life should be ruined. He's dead. I'm not into vengeance. But I understand your perspective. So back to the drugs. So if you've ever taken a mind-altering, I call it the brain because that's what it is, and that helps you better understand. If you've ever taken a brain-altering substance, then that takes that out of the picture for me too. So if you've ever stolen or ever taken a brain-altering substance, it takes out of the picture. Because what I'm hearing people say is, well, if he had been in that situation. Well, have you ever been in a situation where you stole something? You just didn't get caught. Or you didn't steal, right? So when we say the word thug, here's what I find interesting about that word. Is anything that we can see, I used to tell somebody that I was close to that they used to talk about fat people, and I used to say, so you can see their sin on the outside, but they can't see yours, right? Because yours is on the inside, because yours is alcohol, right? So you want to judge people who eat too much, but nobody can see that you drink too much. So this is the same thing to me. It's like white crime. Sugar, guys, sugar is death. It's literally death. Who sells that? It's death. It's the white death. Like, it's literally death. We sell that by the caseloads. White businesses. What else do we peddle out there? I don't know. All these drugs that were popping in people's mouths that are killing people and killing old people. And come on. What's the name for us? Because we need one as the white community. While we're sitting on our high horse calling people thugs, ours is white collar crime. You can't see ours. It's just, stuff like cheating on your taxes and finagling them just a little bit, and there's probably plenty of people out there who are like, I don't cheat on my taxes. I pay my taxes. I do all of that right. I've never stolen in my life. And you know what? But that's probably not most of us. And I don't care if you were 12 and you stole a candy bar. Well, it was $20. I don't care if it was a $2 doggone bubble gum and it was his 20, you stole. So if you go by your Bible, sin's a sin. So back to the drugs part is, to me, it's just like we're and this thug word, it's like, we don't have a word for white people. That's just an example of what I think, what the kind of communication, the systematic racism in communication, which, oh, by the way, I don't actually even agree with the whole conversation about, I think most of the time we're talking about preference. But in this case, I very clearly see it. It's just like simple communication. Oh, so glad there's another thug off the street. Well, I bet you there's some people who really wish that all those white dudes that had robbed old people on the phone, or pastors that had, or wishes that another blank, what's the word? What do we call it when white people do it? Thugs. It's all theft. So we've come up with this word that even shows how prejudiced we are, as if we don't thug as white people. That's exactly what we're doing when we use that word. We're going out, we don't loot. Really? Really? Whites don't loot? Go look up white collar crime. Yes, they do. They just do it from behind a computer. We need to get off our high horses. And that's what they're saying is like, okay, so they haven't had the years to build up family money or seed money, which is very hard to get. And I think that's one of the things that nobody's really talking about enough. And so we've been able to do it with money. They do it on the street. What's the dang difference? Well, they're tearing down the stores. They're tearing down they're tearing apart their own communities. Look, anytime it comes to tearing down your own community, I think that's ridiculous. But I also say, what's the difference between our leaders tearing down their own community, their own country with their words? You're just elevating your sin. You're just elevating a sin over one another. I mean, like, you're tearing down our community every day. When you're talking globally about how much you hate this side and you're talking this side, you're all tearing each other down. Oh, one person's tearing down a building, but you're tearing down lives. I've had my life torn down on social media, and I'm telling you what, I wish they would have come and torn my house down instead. It's no joke to go and publicly tear someone down. It impacts way more than if you just took their bike. Seriously. I mean, it's this doggone, so here's the big one to me. If you hear nothing else, this one. I have a 21-year-old daughter. If she was that person, and let's say that she was lit up, and any of my kids, let's say they were lit up. Has your kid ever done drugs? I don't know if mine has, but let's say it was me. Okay, let's say it was me, high on pot, high as a kite. I lose my mind, I'm fighting against a police officer. They're trying to shove me in the back. They're trying to shove me in the back. You're all visualizing it. I'm on the ground and I start yelling, mama, 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 mama. I'm crying because the guy is crying out. He's weeping, mama, mama, mama. And then at some point he says, it's like he knows it's coming. Mama, mama, mama. And then you guys watch the knee on my neck. I bet you there'd be a bunch of people that said she deserved it, because that's the world we live in. And you know what? For those of you who are you deserved it because you were in that position, I so sincerely hope that you haven't done anything. And I'm not talking about, well, I didn't do that. I'm talking about all the way back to the beginning of your life. You have never done anything that maybe you weren't caught at, or, someone doesn't know. But I really hope you haven't done anything in your life, like anything. Because if you wish something like that, or you think that's deserved on someone like that because of what they did, I don't know. I don't know what I believe about karma, or like, does this happen to this? But I just feel like if there is this moment where we stand in front of the God of the universe that says, judge not lest ye be judged 70 times 7. And I have sat there and said that a man deserved to die and grate another thug off of the street because he was high, and I've never done whatever that drug was, but I've done some other one, or I've drank alcohol, which is a drug. I think I'm screwed. And so I want you to picture that being your son or that being your daughter. And I want you to picture that your son or daughter decides to try drugs one time and gets belligerent with the police officer. And I want you to visualize that exact same thing happening with your child, and you tell me if it's okay that thousands upon thousands of people who said that's what he gets, another thug off the street, and similar type comments, and then we're all saying they were Trump followers. Just about every one of them. And you tell me why I have said forever that I don't know how to support, because I've always considered myself, I'm so fiscally conservative, I'm so fiscally conservative that I don't know how to not think of myself as a Republican. But if that's what being a Republican is about, if that's the clique I gotta be in, I see it on LinkedIn, I see it, if that's the clique you gotta be in that talks like that about a human life, I guess I like to say I'm independent because I like to think on my own. And I definitely am not for a lot of the stuff that I see the blue doing. So, but I'll dang sure hang out over there. But it's so hard for me because I'm like, no, I'm not okay with that. And it's like, when did I have to pick a dang side? When did that become the American way? That we can't write in a name. Have a bunch of, and stop having this two-party garbage and have 10 great candidates standing up there and everyone write a name and whoever gets picked gets picked. Can we just do that? Can we simplify? I don't know. John Green would have a solution for that, but it's ridiculous because neither is an option for me right now. Neither one. So I refuse to put my checkbook. But I'll tell you this, if I had to, and if I had a gun at my head, oh my gosh, what an awful thing to say for starters. I don't know what I would do. Because honestly, I think your people are a representation of who you are. And I built a decent size, 250 liters nonprofit. And I still say some of the greatest human beings on earth. Really great people. It may have turned into a mess, but that's because we were bitter and burned out and tired and all working 40 to 20, 40, 60 hours a week for free. Amazing people. So I'm not saying that's because I'm an amazing person, but your vibe does attract your tribe. So we all know that. And so if you've been one of the person that before this all happened, you said your vibe attracts your tribe, well, ask, what's the vibe? What's the vibe on the right? This looks like a lot of hate to me. That's what it looks like. And so, yeah, I fell hard, and I don't think you can be, that's why I didn't take a small sample. I didn't just go, oh, there's a few people that are on the right that are talking. It's like every stinking person is talking like this. And it's not a holier than thou, oh, I never talk like this, because I studied suicide, trauma, and PTSD, and the lower rates of suicide were in places where they had a voice and they spoke strongly. And I said, you know what, I was kind of trained that was okay and that was being brash, and maybe I need to rethink that. And I have rethought that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking when you verbally assault and attack people and divide all day long. And so am I doing this to him? No, it's a research project. You haven't heard me say she's a piece of, I have given examples and I have said this is what the tribe looks like over here. And you know what? When my tribe of people who I loved and adored, when we started doing that, you doggone right, I looked at myself. You're doggone right. I said, what are you vibing? What are you vibing? And so I'm having a hard time right now because I hope with all of my heart that one day those beautiful, amazing human beings can do what they did again. That could be in the ground. And I just want to know that they are doing the beauty that they were doing before. So it's like, well, what energy do I want to put out? First of all, I always want to say that I am for hope and love and joy and connection. I also don't believe in the idea that peace wins wars. I believe that there is a time, like, don't tell that to the baby being raped. Someone needs to mount up, suit up, and go in with a gun. Like, there is a time and a place. So that I'm not into the whole, like, let's all sit on a flipping field smoking a joint while babies are being raped out there, and there's sex trade, and there's people, that need homes, and there's peace. No, I think that's a cop out from doing hard work. So I feel like I've always sat right in the middle. There is a time for everything under the heavens. And I'm for being a warrior for things that need to be warriored for. And I'm for, because the hope of a warrior is to what? So that somebody else can have hope. so that somebody else, like there's a Marine right now that I desperately want to fight because I know he's overseas. There's probably more, but I know of one for sure. And it every day bothers me. Like, gotta fight for this Marine to come home. I mean, he's a prisoner of war to his own brain that got blown up, and then a test thing on his brain, and you warrior and fight for things so somebody else can have that peace that you're saying, if we could all just be peace and love. Somebody can't have that. We've got to have fighters that fight so other people can have that. We've got to have fighters out there that, no, please stop burning down your own towns. But I understand your anger. I'm pissed. Like, trust me, you might, I don't know enough about the movement from what I've heard and what I've seen. Like, I'm not for when you start seeing the people that are supporting it have songs that talk about, you know, burning down city. But I get it. It's funny to me that white people are like, and they're burning down cities and they're doing, it's like, we came in and took an entire piece of land from people and called it our own. And then we're like, oh my God, I can't believe you. Really, guys? I mean, we might